Do you ever feel like you are easier on everyone else than you are on yourself? Like you can forgive others their mistakes, their flaws, their humanness, but when it comes to you, there is no mercy, no compassion, no grace? Do you ever wonder why loving yourself feels so impossible? Why the voice in your head is so harsh, so critical, so unforgiving? Why you can give love so freely to others but cannot seem to give it to yourself? Is it selfishness to love yourself? Is it narcissism? Or have you been taught something fundamentally wrong about what love actually is? Tonight, we explore this question through the work of Erich Fromm, a psychoanalyst and philosopher who understood that the inability to love oneself is not a personal failing, is a cultural disease, a misunderstanding so deep, so pervasive that it shapes every relationship you have, with others, with yourself, with life itself. This is the still point, a space where the noise of the world falls away, where you can hear the soul, where women gather in the quiet hours to do the deep work, the work of understanding, of unlearning, of becoming whole. If you are called to this work, if you recognize yourself in these words, you belong here. Subscribe so that each time we descend together into the depths, you will be here, in the quiet hours, doing the work that matters. Let the world fall away. Let your body settle. Let your breath slow. You are safe here. You are held. And the work begins now. Insight 1, the misunderstanding of self-love. Fromm said that modern culture has taught us a lie, that to love yourself is selfish, narcissistic, self-centered, that a good person, a moral person, a loving person puts others first, sacrifices their own needs, gives without expecting anything in return, and that to focus on yourself, to care for yourself, to love yourself is somehow wrong, somehow less than, somehow a failure of character. And so you learn to be selfless, to give and give and give, to put everyone else's needs before your own, to make yourself small so others could be big, to silence your voice so others could be heard, to deny your desires so others could have theirs. And you told yourself this was love, this was goodness, this was what it meant to be a woman, to be caring, to be nurturing, to be worthy. But Fromm would say, this is not love. This is self-abandonment. This is the rejection of your own humanity. This is the belief that you are less deserving than others, less important, less worthy of care, of attention, of compassion. And this belief does not come from love. It comes from a culture that benefits when you do not love yourself, when you give without receiving, when you serve without being served, when you exhaust yourself in the service of others while your own soul starves. Fromm taught that self-love is not the opposite of loving others, is the foundation. You cannot truly love another person if you do not love yourself, because love is not sacrifice, is not self-denial, is not the erasure of your own needs. Love is the affirmation of life, of growth, of being. And if you cannot affirm your own life, your own growth, your own being, you cannot truly affirm another's. What you call love for others, when it comes from self-rejection, is not love at all, is dependency, is the need to be needed, is the hope that by giving everything to others, you will finally be worthy, finally be enough, finally be loved. But it never works, because the love you seek from others cannot fill the void created by your own self-rejection. Can only be filled by you, by learning to love yourself, not as selfishness, but as the most fundamental act of being human. Insight 2, the capacity to love. Fromm said that love is not a feeling, not an emotion that happens to you, not something you fall into. Love is an art, a skill, a capacity that must be developed, like playing an instrument, like painting, like any other human ability. And the capacity to love begins with the capacity to love yourself. But you were never taught this. We're taught that love is something you receive, something you earn, something that comes from outside, from a parent who approves of you, from a partner who chooses you, from a world that validates you. And so you spend your life trying to be lovable, trying to be good enough, trying to be worthy, hoping that if you just do enough, give enough, sacrifice enough, someone will finally love you. But Fromm would say, you have it backwards. Love does not come from being loved. It comes from loving, from developing the capacity within yourself to care, to respect, to know, to be responsible for another being. And this capacity cannot be developed toward others if it is not first developed toward yourself. You cannot care for another if you do not care for yourself. Cannot respect another if you do not respect yourself. Cannot know another if you do not know yourself. Cannot be responsible for another if you are not responsible for yourself. This is why your relationships feel so empty, so unsatisfying, so exhausting. Not because you are not loved, but because you do not know how to love, have never developed the capacity, have spent your whole life trying to receive love rather than learning to give it. And the first person you must learn to give it to is yourself, not as preparation for loving others, but as the very essence of what love is. Fromm taught that the person who cannot love themselves cannot love anyone, will only use others to fill the void, to provide what they cannot provide for themselves, will cling, will demand, will need, but will never truly love, because love is not need, is not dependency, is abundance, is overflow, is the capacity to give from fullness rather than take from emptiness. And you cannot be full if you reject yourself, if you deny yourself, if you hate yourself. Insight 3, the productive orientation. Fromm spoke of two fundamental orientations to life: the receptive orientation and the productive orientation. The receptive orientation believes that all good things come from outside, that you must receive in order to have, that you are passive, dependent, waiting for the world to give you what you need, waiting for love, for validation, for worth. And perhaps you recognize this in yourself, the way you wait for others to see you, to choose you, to tell you that you are good enough, the way you look outside yourself for permission to be happy, to be confident, to be at peace, the way you believe that if only you had the right partner, the right job, the right life, then you would finally be okay, finally be whole, finally be enough. But Fromm would say, this orientation keeps you powerless, keeps you dependent, keeps you waiting for something outside yourself to save you. And it never comes, because wholeness does not come from outside. It comes from within, from the productive orientation, from the understanding that you are not a passive receiver but an active creator, that you have the power to generate your own love, your own worth, your own sense of being. The productive orientation is not about doing more, achieving more, producing more in the capitalist sense. It is about being active in your own life, taking responsibility for your own happiness, your own growth, your own love. It is about understanding that you do not need to wait for someone to love you. You can love yourself. Do not need to wait for someone to validate you. You can validate yourself. Do not need to wait for permission to live. You can give yourself permission. This is self-love, not narcissism, not selfishness, but the productive orientation toward your own being, the understanding that you are responsible for your own life, your own joy, your own love, and that this responsibility is not a burden, is freedom, is power, is the foundation of everything else. Because when you stop waiting for the world to give you what you need, you discover that you already have it, have always had it. It was just waiting for you to claim it. Insight 4, the fear of self-love. But there is a fear, a deep fear that lives in you. The fear that if you love yourself, you will become selfish, self-centered, narcissistic, that you will stop caring about others, stop giving, stop being the person everyone needs you to be. And this fear keeps you trapped, keeps you rejecting yourself, keeps you believing that self-love is dangerous. Fromm understood this fear, saw that it comes from a fundamental confusion between self-love and selfishness, between caring for yourself and caring only for yourself, between affirming your own life and denying the lives of others. But these are not the same, are actually opposites. The selfish person does not love themselves, hates themselves, and because they hate themselves, they are constantly trying to take from others what they cannot give to themselves, constantly demanding attention, validation, care, constantly making everything about them because they are desperately trying to fill a void that can never be filled from outside. The selfish person is not someone who loves themselves too much, is someone who loves themselves not at all. But the person who truly loves themselves does not need to take from others, does not need constant validation, does not need to make everything about them, because they are already full, already whole, already enough. And from this fullness, they can truly give, can truly care, can truly love others, not from need, not from obligation, but from genuine care, from respect, from the overflow of their own being. Fromm said, if it is a virtue to love my neighbor as a human being, it must be a virtue and not a vice to love myself. Since I am a human being too, there is no concept of man in which I myself am not included. A doctrine which proclaims such an exclusion proves itself to be intrinsically contradictory. The idea expressed in the biblical love thy neighbor as thyself implies that respect for one's own integrity and uniqueness, love for and understanding of one's own self, cannot be separated from respect and love and understanding for another individual. Insight 5, the practice of self-love. So how do you learn to love yourself? Fromm would say, the same way you learn to love another, through care, through respect, through knowledge, through responsibility. These are the 4 elements of love, and they apply to yourself as much as to anyone else. Care means attending to your own needs, not just physical needs, but emotional needs, psychological needs, spiritual needs. It means asking yourself, what do I need right now? And then giving it to yourself, not waiting for someone else to give it, not feeling guilty for needing, but actively caring for yourself the way you would care for someone you love. Respect means honoring your own boundaries, your own limits, your own truth. It means not forcing yourself to be someone you are not betraying yourself to please others, not silencing your voice to keep the peace. It means treating yourself with the same dignity you would offer to another person, recognizing that your needs matter, your feelings matter, your life matters. Knowledge means truly knowing yourself, not the self you present to the world, not the self you think you should be, but the self you actually are, with all your contradictions, your shadows, your desires, your fears. It means being curious about yourself, interested in yourself, willing to see yourself clearly, without judgment, without shame, just seeing, just knowing. And responsibility means taking ownership of your own life, your own choices, your own happiness. It means not blaming others for your unhappiness, not waiting for someone to save you, not playing the victim, but recognizing that you have power, you have agency, you have the ability to change your life, and that this ability comes with responsibility, the responsibility to act, to choose, to create the life you want. Insight 6, the call to love yourself. And so the call comes, not from outside, but from within, from the part of you that knows you deserve love, that knows you are worthy, that knows you have been betraying yourself for too long. The call to stop waiting, stop hoping, stop trying to earn what is already yours. The call to love yourself. This is not easy, is not comfortable, because you have been taught your whole life that self-love is wrong, that you are not enough, that you must earn your worth through sacrifice, through giving, through being what others need you to be, and to turn toward yourself, to care for yourself, to love yourself, feels like rebellion, feels like selfishness, feels like betrayal. But Fromm would say, it is not betrayal, is homecoming, is the return to yourself, to your own life, to your own being, is the recognition that you are not here to serve others at the expense of yourself, are here to live, to grow, to be, and that this requires love, not the love you receive from others, but the love you give to yourself. This is the foundation of everything, of all relationships, of all joy, of all peace. Because when you love yourself, you stop seeking completion in others. Stop needing them to fill you. Stop demanding they be what you cannot be for yourself. And you can finally meet them as equals, as whole beings, as two people who have learned to love themselves and therefore can truly love each other. This is the art of loving, not a feeling, not an emotion, but a practice, a skill, a capacity, and it begins here, with you, with the willingness to turn toward yourself, to see yourself, to care for yourself, to love yourself, not as preparation for loving others, but as the very essence of what it means to be human, to be alive, to be whole. Now we hold up the mirror, not to judge, not to shame, but to see clearly, to recognize the ways you have been rejecting yourself, betraying yourself, abandoning yourself, the ways you have been taught that you are not worthy of your own love. And in seeing clearly, you begin to understand that the emptiness you feel is not because you are not loved, but because you do not love yourself. Insight 7, the voice of self-rejection. Listen to the voice in your head, the one that speaks to you when you make a mistake, when you fail, when you are not perfect. What does it say? Perhaps it says, you are stupid. You are worthless. You always mess everything up. You are not good enough. You will never be good enough. You do not deserve love. You do not deserve happiness. You are too much. You are not enough. This is the voice of self-rejection. And perhaps you have lived with it so long that you do not even notice it anymore. It has become the background noise of your life, the constant companion, the inner critic that never rests, never forgives, never shows mercy. And you believe this voice is telling you the truth, that it is keeping you in line, keeping you humble, keeping you from becoming selfish or arrogant or too much. But from, let's say, this voice is not truth, is the internalization of a culture that does not want you to love yourself. That benefits when you believe you are not enough, when you constantly strive to be better, to do more, to give more, to be more acceptable, more lovable, more worthy. This voice keeps you small, keeps you striving, keeps you believing that love is something you must earn rather than something you already deserve. And the cruelty of this voice is staggering. You would never speak to another person the way you speak to yourself. Would never be so harsh, so unforgiving, so merciless. If a friend came to you with a mistake, you would offer compassion, understanding, forgiveness. But when you make a mistake, there is no compassion, only condemnation, only the voice that says, you should have known better. You should have done better. You are a failure. From taught that this is not self-love, is self-hatred, and self-hatred masquerading as self-improvement, as motivation, as the voice that keeps you on track. But it does not keep you on track, keeps you paralyzed, keeps you afraid, keeps you believing that you are fundamentally flawed, fundamentally unworthy, fundamentally unlovable. And from this belief, you cannot love, cannot give, cannot be, can only strive, only try, only hope that one day you will finally be good enough. Insight 8, the pattern of self-abandonment. Now look at your relationships, not just romantic relationships, but all relationships. With friends, with family, with colleagues, with anyone who asks something of you. Do you see the pattern? The way you say yes when you mean no. The way you give when you have nothing left to give. The way you accommodate, adjust, make yourself smaller, easier, more convenient. Perhaps you recognize this. The way you cancel your own plans when someone else needs you. The way you put your own needs last, always last. The way you tell yourself that your needs do not matter as much as theirs. That you can wait. That you should wait. That to prioritize yourself would be selfish, would be wrong, would make you a bad person, a bad friend, a bad woman. This is self-abandonment. And Fromm would say, this is not love. Not for them, not for you. Because when you abandon yourself, you are not truly present in the relationship, are not truly giving, are giving from depletion, from obligation, from the belief that you must earn your place, must earn your worth, must prove that you deserve to be loved by constantly sacrificing yourself. And the people in your life may not even know they are asking you to abandon yourself, may not realize that when you say yes, you mean no, that when you smile, you are exhausted, that when you give, you are empty, because you have learned to hide it so well, to perform, to pretend, to make it look easy, to make it look like you do not mind, like you are happy to help, like you do not have needs of your own. But you do have needs. You do mind. You are not happy to help when it costs you your own well-being, your own peace, your own life, and the resentment builds, quietly, invisibly, until one day you realize you are angry at them, at yourself, at the life you have created where everyone else's needs matter except your own. And you do not know how it happened, how you became so lost, so invisible, so absent from your own life. Insight 9, the myth of selflessness. You were taught that selflessness is a virtue, that to be a good person, a good woman, you must put others first, must sacrifice your own needs, must give without expecting anything in return. And you believed this, tried to live this, tried to be the selfless one, the giving one, the one who never asks for anything, never needs anything, never takes up space. But Fromm would say, selflessness is not a virtue, is a pathology, is the belief that you do not matter, that your life is less important than the lives of others, that your needs are less valid, your desires less worthy, your being less significant. And this belief does not come from love, comes from a deep wound, a wound that taught you that you are not enough, that you must earn your place in the world by being useful, by being needed, by being selfless. And so you give and give and give, not from abundance, not from love, but from the desperate hope that if you give enough, you will finally be worthy, finally be loved, finally be enough. But it never works, because the love you seek cannot be earned through self-sacrifice, can only be received when you believe you are worthy of it. And you cannot believe you are worthy if you are constantly abandoning yourself, constantly betraying yourself, constantly choosing everyone else over yourself. From taught that true giving comes from abundance, from fullness, from the overflow of a life that is already rich, already whole, already enough. But you cannot give from abundance if you are empty, cannot give from fullness if you are depleted, cannot overflow if you are constantly pouring yourself out without ever filling yourself up. The myth of selflessness keeps you empty, keeps you giving from lack, keeps you believing that your emptiness is virtue when it is actually violence. Violence against yourself. And the people who benefit from your selflessness may praise you for it, may tell you how wonderful you are, how giving, how selfless, how they do not know what they would do without you. And you feel needed, feel important, feel like you matter. But this is not love, is dependency, is the need to be needed, is the belief that your worth comes from what you do for others rather than from who you are. And this belief keeps you trapped, keeps you giving, keeps you abandoning yourself in the name of love. Insight 10, the fear of being seen. But beneath the self-rejection and the self-abandonment is something else. A fear, a deep fear that if you stop performing, stop giving, stop being what everyone needs you to be, they will see you, the real you, and they will not love what they see, will reject you, abandon you, leave you alone. This fear keeps you hidden, keeps you performing, keeps you showing only the acceptable parts of yourself, the parts that are easy, pleasant, undemanding. You hide your needs, your desires, your anger, your sadness, your complexity, your humanness, because you believe that if people saw all of you, they would not love you, would not want you, would not choose you. And so you make yourself small, make yourself simple, make yourself easy to love. But in doing so, you make yourself invisible, because the person they love is not you, is the performance, the mask, the version of you that you think they want. And you are exhausted, exhausted from performing, from hiding, from never being able to just be, to just exist, to just be yourself without fear of rejection. Fromm would say this fear is understandable, is based on real experiences, on times when you were rejected for being yourself, for having needs, for taking up space, for being too much or not enough. And so you learn to hide, to perform, to be what others wanted rather than who you are. But this strategy does not protect you, does not keep you safe, only keeps you alone. Because if they do not see you, they cannot love you, can only love the mask. And you know this. Know that the love you receive is not for you, is for the performance. And so you feel empty, feel unseen, feel unloved, even when surrounded by people who claim to love you. The only way to be truly loved is to be truly seen. And the only way to be truly seen is to stop hiding, to stop performing, to stop abandoning yourself in the hope that others will love you, to risk being yourself, fully, completely, with all your needs and desires and complexity and humanness. And yes, some people will not love what they see, will reject you, will leave. But these are not your people, are not the ones who can truly love you. The ones who can love you are the ones who see you, all of you, and love you anyway, not despite who you are, but because of who you are. Inside 11, the cost of not loving yourself. Now look at the cost. The cost of not loving yourself, of rejecting yourself, of abandoning yourself, of hiding yourself. What has it cost you? Your peace, your joy, your energy, your life. You have spent your whole life trying to be lovable, trying to be enough, trying to earn your place. And in the process, you have lost yourself. You do not know what you want anymore because you have spent so long wanting what others want. Do not know what you need because you have spent so long meeting the needs of others. Do not know who you are because you have spent so long being who others need you to be. You are exhausted, depleted, empty, and you do not know how to fill yourself up because you have never learned, have never been taught, have never believed you were worthy of your own care. And your relationships suffer, not because you do not love others, but because you do not love yourself. And so your love is needy, dependent, demanding. You need them to validate you, to tell you that you are good enough, to fill the void that you cannot fill yourself. And they cannot do it, cannot give you what you will not give yourself, cannot love you in a way that makes you feel whole when you believe you are broken, cannot see you when you are hiding. From taught that the inability to love oneself creates a particular kind of suffering, not just the suffering of feeling unloved, but the suffering of being unable to love, of being unable to give, of being unable to connect. Because when you do not love yourself, you are always taking, always needing, always trying to get from others what you should be giving to yourself. And this creates relationships that are transactional, conditional, based on need rather than love, based on what you can get rather than what you can give. And you feel it. Feel the emptiness. Feel the loneliness. Even when surrounded by people. Even when in relationship. Because the relationship is not real. Is not based on two whole people meeting. Is based on two half people trying to complete each other, trying to fill each other's voids, trying to be for each other what they cannot be for themselves. And it does not work, cannot work, because wholeness does not come from another person, comes from within, from the willingness to love yourself, to care for yourself, to be for yourself what you have been waiting for someone else to be. Inside 12, the mirror shows you. And so the mirror shows you the voice of self-rejection that runs your life, shows you the pattern of self-abandonment that shapes your relationships, shows you the myth of selflessness that keeps you empty, shows you the fear of being seen that keeps you hidden, shows you the cost of not loving yourself, the cost to your peace, your joy, your relationships, your life. The mirror does not judge, does not shame, simply shows. And in seeing clearly, you are given a choice. You can continue as you have been, continue rejecting yourself, continue abandoning yourself, continue hiding, continue believing that love is something you must earn, something that comes from outside, something that will finally make you whole. Or you can choose differently. You can choose to see that the voice of self-rejection is not truth, is conditioning, is the internalization of a culture that does not want you whole. You can choose to see that self-abandonment is not love, is betrayal, is the rejection of your own humanity. You can choose to see that selflessness is not virtue, is pathology, is the belief that you do not matter. You can choose to see that hiding is not safety, is loneliness, is the guarantee that you will never be truly loved because you will never be truly seen. And you can choose to love yourself, not as selfishness, not as narcissism, but as the most fundamental act of being human, as the foundation of everything else, as the only way to truly love others, to truly give, to truly be. This is the gift of the mirror, not to show you what is wrong with you, but to show you what is asking to be healed, what is calling to be loved, what is waiting to come home. And that is you, all of you, waiting to be loved by you. Now we descend deeper into the architecture of Fromm's thought, into the understanding of why you were taught not to love yourself, why the culture needs you empty, why capitalism benefits from your self-rejection. This is not abstract theory. It is the blueprint of the world you live in, the map of the forces that shaped you. And in understanding this architecture, you gain the power to resist, to choose differently, to reclaim yourself. Insight 13, Love is an Art. Fromm began with a radical premise, that love is not something that happens to you, not a feeling you fall into, not luck or fate or chemistry. Love is an art, like painting, like music, like any skill that requires discipline, concentration, patience, and practice. And like any art, it must be learned, must be studied, must be cultivated over a lifetime. But modern culture teaches the opposite, teaches that love is passive, that you wait for it, that it strikes like lightning, that when you meet the right person, everything will be easy, natural, effortless. And so you spend your life waiting, hoping, believing that love is something that will happen to you rather than something you must learn to do. Fromm said this is why most people fail at love, not because they are incapable, not because they are unworthy, but because they have never learned the art, have never developed the discipline, have never understood that love requires work, requires consciousness, requires the willingness to grow, to change, to become someone capable of loving. And the first canvas for this art is yourself. You cannot paint if you have never held a brush, cannot play music if you have never touched an instrument, cannot love another if you have never learned to love yourself. Self-love is not preparation for loving others. It is the practice ground, the place where you develop the skills, the discipline, the capacity, where you learn what it means to care, to respect, to know, to be responsible, and then you bring these skills to your relationships with others. But if you skip this step, if you try to love others without first learning to love yourself, you are like someone trying to paint a masterpiece who has never learned to hold a brush. You may have passion, may have desire, may have good intentions, but you do not have skill, do not have capacity, do not have the foundation, and so your love is clumsy, needy, dependent, not because you are bad at love, but because you have never learned the art. Insight 14, the 4 elements of love. Fromm taught that love has 4 essential elements: care, respect, knowledge, responsibility. These are not feelings, are actions, practices, ways of being, and they apply equally to yourself and to others. You cannot truly care for another if you do not care for yourself. Cannot respect another if you do not respect yourself. Cannot know another if you do not know yourself. Cannot be responsible for another if you are not responsible for yourself. Care means active concern for the life and growth of what we love. Not passive, not waiting, but active. Doing, attending. When you care for yourself, you ask, what do I need to grow? To thrive? To be fully alive? And then you give it to yourself. Not someday, not when you have earned it, but now, because you are alive, and life deserves care. Respect comes from the Latin respicer, to look at, means the ability to see a person as they are, to be aware of their unique individuality. Respect means I want you to grow and unfold as you are, not as I need you to be, not as would be convenient for me, but as you are. And this begins with yourself. Can you see yourself as you are? Can you respect your own uniqueness? Your own path? Your own unfolding? Or are you constantly trying to be someone else? Someone more acceptable? Someone more lovable? Knowledge means to know the other person, not superficially, not the mask they present, but deeply, to penetrate beneath the surface, to see their core, their essence, their truth, and this requires knowledge of yourself. You cannot know another if you do not know yourself, cannot see their depths if you have never explored your own, cannot recognize their truth if you are living in denial of your own. And responsibility, not in the sense of duty or obligation, but in the original sense, the ability to respond, to be present, to be available, to be there. Responsibility for yourself means you do not abandon yourself. Do not betray yourself. Do not wait for someone else to save you. You respond to your own needs, your own pain, your own joy. You are there for yourself. Always. This is the foundation. And from this foundation, you can be responsible for others. Not from obligation, but from choice, from capacity, from love. Insight 15, the marketing orientation. But Fromm understood that modern culture actively works against self-love. Teaches you to see yourself not as a being to be loved, but as a commodity to be sold. He called this the marketing orientation. The belief that your value is determined by how well you sell yourself, how attractive you are, how successful, how useful, how desirable to others. In the marketing orientation, you are not a person or a product. And like any product, your value depends on demand, on whether others want you, choose you, by you. And so you spend your life trying to increase your market value, trying to be more attractive, more successful, more perfect, more desirable, hoping that if you can just make yourself valuable enough, someone will finally choose you, finally love you, finally make you feel worthy. But this orientation makes self-love impossible. Because if your value comes from outside, from how others see you, from whether they choose you, you can never love yourself, can only market yourself, can only perform, can only hope that the performance is good enough, that you are sellable enough, that someone will finally buy what you are selling. And even when someone does choose you, you do not feel loved. Feel anxious, insecure, wondering when they will see through the performance, when they will realize you are not as valuable as you pretended to be, when they will leave you for a better product, a newer model, someone with higher market value. This is not love, is a transaction, is the buying and selling of human beings. And it destroys the possibility of genuine connection, of genuine love, of genuine self-worth. Fromm said that capitalism needs you to see yourself this way, needs you to believe your value comes from outside, from what you produce, what you consume, what you achieve. Because if you loved yourself, if you knew your inherent worth, you would not be so easy to exploit, would not work yourself to exhaustion trying to prove your value, would not buy things you do not need trying to fill the void, would not accept relationships that diminish you, would not tolerate a system that treats you as a commodity rather than a human being. Insight 16, the illusion of romantic love. And nowhere is the marketing orientation more visible than in romantic love. Fromm said that modern culture has created an illusion. The illusion that romantic love is the solution to loneliness, to emptiness, to the fundamental isolation of human existence. That if you can just find the right person, fall in love, merge with them, you will finally be whole, finally be complete, finally be happy. But this is not love. Is fusion, is the attempt to escape yourself by losing yourself in another. And it feels like love at first, feels like ecstasy, like you have finally found what you were looking for, like you are no longer alone. But the feeling does not last, cannot last, because you cannot escape yourself, cannot fill your emptiness with another person, cannot become whole by merging with someone else. And when the fusion fades, when the ecstasy wears off, you are left with the same emptiness you started with, the same loneliness, the same sense of incompleteness. And you believe the problem is the person, that they were not the right one, that you need to find someone else, someone better, someone who will finally complete you. And so you leave, and search again, and fall in love again, and experience the same fusion, the same ecstasy, the same inevitable fading, the same disappointment. Fromm taught that this pattern will repeat forever unless you understand the fundamental error, that you are not incomplete, do not need another person to make you whole, are already whole, already complete, already enough. And love is not about finding someone to complete you. It is about two whole people choosing to share their lives, to grow together, to support each other's unfolding, not from need, not from emptiness, but from fullness, from the overflow of two people who have learned to love themselves and therefore can truly love each other. But you cannot have this kind of love if you do not love yourself. If you are empty, if you are looking for someone to fill you, to complete you, to make you whole, you will only create fusion, dependency, the illusion of love, and you will spend your life disappointed, searching, believing that the next person will be different, will finally be the one, when the truth is that no one can be the one, because you are the one. You are what you have been searching for, and until you find yourself, you will never find love. Insight 17, the pathology of normalcy. Fromm introduced a concept that was radical for his time. The pathology of normalcy. The idea that what society considers normal is actually sick. That the way most people live is not healthy, not sane, not conducive to human flourishing, and that to be well adjusted to a sick society is not health, is sickness. He looked at modern capitalist society and saw a culture that produces lonely, anxious, depressed people who do not know how to love, who do not know themselves, who spend their lives working jobs they hate to buy things they do not need to impress people they do not like, who are alienated from their own being, from their own creativity, from their own capacity for joy. And he said, this is not normal. This is pathological. This is a sick society producing sick people. And one of the primary symptoms of this pathology is the inability to love oneself. The belief that self-love is selfish, that you must earn your worth, that your value comes from outside, that you are not enough as you are. This is not a personal failing, is a cultural disease, is the result of living in a society that needs you to be insecure, to be striving, to be never satisfied, because satisfied people do not make good consumers, do not make good workers, do not make good citizens of a capitalist state. Fromm said that to love yourself in this culture is an act of rebellion, is a refusal to accept the pathology as normal, is a claiming of your own humanity in a system that wants to reduce you to a commodity. And this is why it is so hard, why it feels so wrong, why you have been taught your whole life that self-love is narcissism, because the culture cannot afford for you to love yourself, cannot afford for you to know your worth, cannot afford for you to be whole, needs you broken, needs you striving, needs you empty. But Fromm believed that individual healing is possible even within a sick society, that you can learn to love yourself even when the culture teaches you not to, that you can become sane even in an insane world, not by adjusting to the pathology, but by recognizing it, by seeing it clearly, by refusing to accept it as normal, and by choosing consciously and deliberately to live differently, to love differently, to be differently. Insight 18, the productive character. And so Fromm offered an alternative, a different way of being. He called it the productive character. Not productive in the capitalist sense of producing more, achieving more, doing more, but productive in the sense of being fully alive, fully present, fully engaged with life. The productive character is someone who has developed their human capacities, their capacity to love, to think, to create, to relate, to be. The productive character does not seek validation from outside, does not need others to tell them they are worthy, does not measure their value by their achievements or their possessions or their relationships, knows their worth is inherent, is given by the simple fact of being alive, of being human, and from this knowing they can love, can give, can create, can be, not from need, not from lack, but from abundance, from fullness, from the joy of being alive. And the foundation of the productive character is self-love, not narcissism, not selfishness, but the genuine care for one's own being, the respect for one's own uniqueness, the knowledge of one's own depths, the responsibility for one's own life. This is what makes productivity possible, not the productivity of capitalism, but the productivity of being human, of living fully, of loving deeply, of being whole. From taught that this is available to everyone, is not reserved for the enlightened few, is not something you must earn, is your birthright, your natural state, what you were before the culture taught you to reject yourself, before you learned that your worth must be earned, before you believe that love comes from outside. The productive character is not something you must become, is something you must remember, must reclaim, must return to, is coming home to yourself. And this is the architecture, the structure of Fromm's thought. Love is an art that must be learned, the 4 elements that must be practiced, the marketing orientation that must be resisted, the illusion of romantic love that must be seen through, the pathology of normalcy that must be recognized, and the productive character that must be reclaimed. This is not just theory, it is a map, a guide, a way of understanding why you are the way you are, why the culture is the way it is, and how you can choose differently, how you can love yourself, how you can be free. Now we enter the shadows, the places where the resistance lives, where the fear hides, where the voices that keep you from loving yourself speak their loudest. This is not comfortable territory, not easy work, but it is necessary, because you cannot integrate what you do not see, cannot heal what you do not acknowledge, cannot love yourself if you do not understand what stands in the way. So we descend into the darkness, where the gold is hidden. Insight 19, the fear of selfishness. Perhaps the deepest fear is this, that if you love yourself, you will become selfish, self-centered, narcissistic, that you will stop caring about others, stop giving, stop being the person everyone needs you to be. This fear lives in your body, in your bones, in the cellular memory of every time you were told that thinking of yourself was wrong, that putting yourself first was bad, that good people sacrifice themselves. And so you police yourself, watch yourself constantly, make sure you are not being too selfish, not taking too much, not asking for too much, not needing too much. You would rather abandon yourself than risk being seen as selfish, would rather betray your own needs than be accused of self-centeredness, would rather suffer in silence than be called narcissistic. But Fromm would say this fear is based on a lie, on the confusion between self-love and selfishness. The selfish person does not love themselves too much, loves themselves not at all, is desperately trying to get from others what they cannot give themselves, is constantly taking because they are constantly empty, is making everything about them because they do not know who they are. Selfishness is not too much self-love, is the absence of self-love. And the person who truly loves themselves is not selfish, does not need to take from others, does not need constant attention, does not need to make everything about them, because they are full, or whole, or enough. And from this fullness, they can truly give, can truly care, can truly love others. Not from obligation, not from guilt, not from the need to prove they are not selfish, but from genuine abundance, from the overflow of a life that is rich, that is full, that is loved by them. The fear of selfishness keeps you small, keeps you giving from emptiness, keeps you believing that to care for yourself is to betray others. But the truth is the opposite. When you do not love yourself, when you are empty, you have nothing real to give, can only give from depletion, from resentment, from the hope that your sacrifice will finally make you worthy. And this is not love, not for them, not for you, is a transaction, is the currency of guilt, is the economy of unworthiness. Insight 20, the shame of needing. And beneath the fear of selfishness is shame, the shame of having needs, of wanting things, of not being self-sufficient. You were taught that needing is weakness, that asking is burden, that a strong person, a good person, does not need anything from anyone, takes care of themselves, does not impose, does not ask, does not need. And so you learn to hide your needs, to minimize them, to pretend they do not exist. You learn to say I am fine when you are not fine, to say I do not need anything when you are drowning, to smile when you are breaking, because to admit need is to admit weakness, is to admit you are not enough, is to risk rejection, abandonment, the confirmation that you are, in fact, too much, too needy, too demanding, unlovable. But Fromm would say, to be human is to need connection, to need care, to need love. This is not weakness, is the fundamental condition of being alive. You are not a self-sufficient island, are a relational being, are designed to need, to want, to depend on others. And there is no shame in this. The shame is not in the needing, is in the belief that needing makes you unworthy, that having needs makes you a burden, that being human makes you unlovable. And when you love yourself, you do not hide your needs, do not minimize them, do not pretend to be self-sufficient when you are not. You acknowledge your needs, honor them, speak them, not apologetically, not with shame, but with the simple recognition that you are human, that you need, that this is okay, that you are worthy of having your needs met, not because you have earned it, not because you have been good enough, but because you are alive, and life has needs, and you deserve to have yours met. The shame of needing keeps you isolated, keeps you pretending, keeps you performing strength when you are exhausted, keeps you smiling when you are sad, keeps you saying yes when you mean no, keeps you alone. Because if you never show your needs, no one can meet them. If you never ask for help, no one can help you. If you never admit you are struggling, no one can support you. The shame keeps you safe from rejection, but also keeps you safe from connection, from love, from being truly seen, truly known, truly held. Insight 21, the voice of unworthiness. And running beneath all of this is a voice, a deep voice that whispers constantly, that says, you are not worthy of love, not worthy of care, not worthy of your own attention, not worthy of taking up space, not worthy of having needs, not worthy of being seen, not worthy of being here. This is the voice of unworthiness, and it shapes everything. This voice is not yours, is not truth, is the internalization of every message you received that you are not enough. Every time you were criticized, every time you were rejected, every time you were told to be different, to be better, to be less, to be more, every time love was conditional, every time acceptance was earned, every time you learned that who you are is not acceptable, not lovable, not worthy. And this voice became your inner voice, the one that judges you, that finds fault, that tells you that you are failing, that you are not doing enough, that you are not being enough, that you will never be enough. And you believe this voice, have believed it for so long that you do not even question it anymore. It is just the truth, the way things are, the reality of who you are, unworthy. But from, let's say, this voice is a lie, is the voice of a culture that needs you to feel unworthy, that needs you to constantly strive, to constantly prove yourself, to constantly earn your place, because worthy people are dangerous. Worthy people do not accept exploitation, do not tolerate abuse, do not work themselves to death trying to prove their value. Worthy people know their value, and they demand to be treated accordingly. And so the culture teaches unworthiness, teaches you that you must earn love, must earn care, must earn your right to exist. And this teaching becomes the voice in your head, the voice that keeps you small, keeps you striving, keeps you believing that self-love is something you must deserve rather than something you already have the right to. And until you recognize this voice, until you see it clearly, until you understand that it is not truth but conditioning, you cannot love yourself, can only try to earn the right to love yourself, which is not love at all. Insight 22, the terror of being seen. And perhaps the deepest shadow is this, the terror of being truly seen, of being known, of being visible. Because if you are seen, you might be rejected. If you are known, you might be abandoned. If you are visible, you might be judged. And so you hide, not just from others, but from yourself. You do not look too closely at who you are. Do not examine your depths. Do not explore your shadows. Because what if you look and do not like what you see? What if you are as unworthy as you fear? This terror keeps you on the surface, keeps you performing, keeps you showing only the acceptable parts, the parts that are easy, pleasant, undemanding. You become an expert at hiding, at presenting a version of yourself that is lovable, that is acceptable, that will not be rejected. But this version is not you, is a mask, a performance, a carefully constructed image designed to keep you safe, to keep you from being seen, to keep you from being rejected. But Fromm would say, you cannot love what you do not see, cannot love yourself if you are hiding from yourself, cannot develop genuine self-love if you only love the acceptable parts, the parts you have decided are worthy, the parts you are willing to show. True self-love requires seeing all of you, the light and the shadow, the strength and the weakness, the beauty and the ugliness, the parts you are proud of and the parts you are ashamed of, all of it, and loving it anyway. This is terrifying, because what if you look and find that you are unlovable? What if the voice of unworthiness is right? What if you are fundamentally flawed, fundamentally broken, fundamentally not enough? But here is what Fromm understood, that the fear of being unlovable is worse than the reality. That when you actually look, when you actually see yourself, when you actually know yourself, you discover that you are not unlovable, are human, are complex, are contradictory, are imperfect, but are not unlovable, are worthy, have always been worthy. The unworthiness was never true, was only a story, a lie, a shadow that dissolves when you shine light on it. And when you see yourself, truly see yourself, you discover something else, that you are not alone in your imperfection, that everyone is struggling, everyone is flawed, everyone is trying to figure it out, and that your humanity, your vulnerability, your imperfection is not what makes you unlovable, is what makes you lovable, is what makes you real, is what makes connection possible. Because perfection is not relatable, is not human, is not real. But your messy, complicated, imperfect humanity, that is real, that is beautiful, that is worthy of love. Insight 23, the grief of lost time. And as you begin to see clearly, as you begin to understand how long you have been rejecting yourself, how many years you have spent believing you are not worthy, how much of your life you have given to the performance, to the hiding, to the constant striving to be enough, a grief arises, a deep grief for the time lost, for the life not lived, for the self not loved. You grieve for the younger you, the one who needed love and did not receive it, the one who needed to be seen and was invisible, the one who needed to be held and was alone. You grieve for all the times you abandoned yourself, all the times you betrayed yourself, all the times you chose others over yourself, all the times you said yes when you meant no, all the times you smiled when you were breaking, all the times you pretended to be fine when you were drowning. And you grieve for what could have been, for the life you might have lived if you had loved yourself, for the relationships you might have had if you had not been hiding, for the joy you might have experienced if you had not been performing, for the peace you might have known if you had not been striving, for the freedom you might have felt if you had not been afraid. this grief is real, is valid, is necessary. But from, let's say, do not let the grief become another reason to reject yourself. Do not turn the grief into blame, into more evidence that you are not enough, that you have failed, that you have wasted your life. The grief is not about failure, is about recognition, is about finally seeing clearly, is about honoring what was lost, and then choosing differently, choosing now, choosing to love yourself now, not someday, not when you have healed enough, not when you have earned it, but now. You cannot get back the lost time, cannot undo the years of self-rejection, cannot change the past, but you can change now, can choose now, can love yourself now. And in loving yourself now, you honor the younger you, the one who needed love, the one who deserved love, the one who was always worthy. You give to yourself now what you needed then. And in doing so, you heal, not by erasing the past, but by choosing differently in the present, by refusing to lose one more day, one more hour, one more moment, to the belief that you are not worthy of your own love. Insight 24, the resistance to change. And even as you see clearly, even as you understand, even as you recognize the lies, the conditioning, the voices that are not yours, there is resistance, a deep resistance to change, to loving yourself, to choosing differently, because the old way is familiar, is known, is safe, even if it is painful, even if it is killing you. It is what you know, and the unknown is terrifying. What if you love yourself and nothing changes? What if you still feel empty? What if you are still alone? What if self-love is not the answer? What if you do all this work and you are still not enough? These fears are real, are understandable, are the mind's attempt to keep you safe, to keep you from risking, to keep you from hoping, because hope is dangerous. Hope can be disappointed, and you have been disappointed so many times, have hoped so many times, have believed so many times that this time would be different, and it never was. But from, let's say, the resistance is not protecting you, is keeping you stuck, is keeping you in the familiar pain rather than risking the unknown possibility. And yes, loving yourself might not solve everything, might not fill every void, might not make you perfect, might not guarantee that you will never be lonely or sad or afraid again, but it will change something fundamental, will change your relationship with yourself, will change how you move through the world, will change what you accept, what you tolerate, what you believe you deserve. And this change is not small, is not insignificant, is revolutionary. Because when you love yourself, you stop waiting for permission to live. Stop waiting for someone else to validate you. Stop waiting for the world to tell you that you are enough. You give yourself permission. You validate yourself. You tell yourself that you are enough. And from this place, everything shifts. Not because your circumstances change, but because you change. And when you change, your relationship to your circumstances changes. Your capacity to handle them changes. Your ability to create what you want changes. The resistance wants you to believe that nothing will change, that loving yourself is pointless, that you might as well stay where you are. But this is the voice of fear, the voice of the old pattern, the voice that has kept you safe by keeping you small. And it is time to stop listening, time to risk, time to choose, time to love yourself, not because it will solve everything, but because you deserve it, because you are worthy, because you are here, and that is enough. And now we arrive at the place where understanding becomes practice, where insight becomes action, where the journey inward becomes the journey home. This is not the end, it is the beginning of a new relationship with yourself. A relationship based not on rejection but on love, not on striving but on acceptance, not on earning but on being. This is the integration, the return, the homecoming. Insight 25, the practice of self-care. Self-love begins with self-care, not the commercialized version, not bubble baths and face masks, but genuine care, active concern for your own life and growth. From taught that care is not passive, is not waiting, is doing, is attending, is asking yourself every day, what do I need? And then giving it to yourself. Perhaps you need rest, real rest, not the exhausted collapse at the end of a day spent giving to everyone else, but intentional rest, chosen rest, rest that comes before you are depleted, rest that is not earned but given, because you are alive, and living requires rest, and you deserve it, not because you worked hard enough, not because you did enough, but because you are here, and that is enough. Perhaps you need nourishment, not just food, but soul nourishment, beauty, nature, art, music, silence, whatever feeds you, whatever makes you feel alive, whatever reminds you that you are more than your productivity, more than your usefulness, more than what you do for others. You are a being, a soul, a life, and you deserve to be nourished, not as reward, not as treat, but as necessity, as the basic requirement of being alive. Perhaps you need boundaries, clear boundaries, with others, with work, with demands, with expectations. Boundaries that say, this is where I end and you begin. This is what I can give and what I cannot. This is what I will accept and what I will not. Boundaries are not walls, are not rejection, are the definition of self, are the way you honor your own limits, your own needs, your own humanity. And setting boundaries is an act of self-love, is saying, I matter, my needs matter, my life matters. Self-care is not selfish, is not indulgent, is not optional, is the foundation, is how you practice loving yourself, is how you demonstrate through action that you are worthy of care, that your needs matter, that your life deserves attention. And when you care for yourself, you are not taking from others, are filling yourself so that you can give from overflow rather than depletion, are becoming whole so that you can love from wholeness rather than need. Insight 26, the practice of self-respect. And self-love requires self-respect. From taught that respect means to see a person as they are, to honor their uniqueness, their path, their unfolding, and this begins with yourself. Can you see yourself as you are? Not as you think you should be, not as others want you to be, but as you actually are, with all your contradictions, your complexities, your imperfections. Can you respect this? Can you honor this? Can you allow yourself to be yourself? Self-respect means you do not betray yourself. Do not force yourself to be someone you are not. Do not silence your voice to keep the peace. Do not shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Do not apologize for taking up space, for having needs, for being human. Self-respect means you treat yourself with dignity, with the same consideration you would offer to someone you respect. You do not speak to yourself with cruelty. Do not judge yourself harshly. Do not demand perfection. You allow yourself to be human, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow. And self-respect means you do not tolerate disrespect from others. Do not accept relationships that diminish you. Do not stay in situations that require you to abandon yourself. Do not allow others to treat you in ways you would never treat yourself. This is not about being difficult. It is about having standards. It is about knowing your worth. It is about refusing to participate in your own diminishment. And when you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you, not through words, through action, through what you accept and what you do not. Self-respect is quiet, is not loud, is not aggressive, is simply the steady knowing that you matter, that your life has value, that you deserve to be treated well by others and by yourself. And from this knowing, you move through the world differently. You do not beg for respect. Do not earn it. Do not prove it. You simply embody it, and others feel it and respond to it, not because you demand it, but because you know it. And what you know about yourself, others come to know about you too. Insight 27, the practice of self-knowledge. And from taught that love requires knowledge. Deep knowledge, not superficial, not the surface presentation, but the depths, the truth, the reality beneath the mask. And you cannot know another if you do not know yourself. Cannot see their depths if you have never explored your own. Cannot love them truly if you have never loved yourself truly. And so self-knowledge becomes essential, not optional, not luxury, but necessity. Self-knowledge means you are willing to look, to see, to explore, not just the parts you like, not just the parts you are proud of, but all of it, the light and the shadow, the strength and the weakness, the beauty and the ugliness, the parts that are easy to love and the parts that are hard. You look at yourself with curiosity, with interest, with the desire to understand, not to judge, not to fix, but to know, to see clearly, to recognize who you actually are beneath all the conditioning, all the performance, all the masks. And this requires honesty, radical honesty, with yourself, about yourself, about what you feel, what you want, what you need, what you fear, what you desire, what you are avoiding, what you are pretending, what you are hiding. This honesty is not comfortable, is not easy, because you have spent your whole life learning to lie to yourself, to pretend you are fine when you are not, to hide your needs, to minimize your desires, to perform strength when you are weak. And now you must unlearn this, must learn to tell yourself the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable, even when the truth is not what you want it to be. But in this honesty, you find freedom, find yourself, find the truth of who you are beneath all the layers. And this truth is not as scary as you feared, is not as unlovable as you believed, is simply human, complex, contradictory, imperfect, real. And when you know yourself truly, you can love yourself truly, can accept yourself fully, can be yourself completely, without apology, without shame, without the constant performance. Just being, just existing, just alive. Insight 28, the practice of self-responsibility. And from taught that love requires responsibility, not in the sense of duty, but in the original sense, the ability to respond, to be present, to be available, to be there. And self-responsibility means you are there for yourself, always. You do not abandon yourself. Do not betray yourself. Do not wait for someone else to save you. You save yourself. You show up for yourself. You respond to your own needs, your own pain, your own joy, your own life. Self-responsibility means you take ownership of your life, your choices, your happiness, your growth. You do not blame others for your unhappiness. Do not wait for circumstances to change. Do not play victim to your life. You recognize that you have power, have agency, have the ability to choose, to act, to create, and you use this power not to control everything, not to force outcomes, but to take responsibility for your own experience, for how you respond, for what you do with what happens to you. This is not about being perfect, is not about never making mistakes, is not about having it all figured out, is about being willing to learn, to grow, to change, to take responsibility for your own development, your own healing, your own becoming. You do not wait for someone to fix you. Do not wait for the perfect conditions. Do not wait for permission. You give yourself permission. You do the work. You show up day after day, not because it is easy, but because you are responsible for your own life, and no one else can live it for you. And in taking responsibility, you reclaim your power, your agency, your life. You are no longer at the mercy of others, no longer waiting for someone to choose you, to validate you, to make you whole. You choose yourself. You validate yourself. You make yourself whole. And from this place of responsibility, of power, of agency, you can truly love. can truly give, can truly be, not from need, not from lack, but from choice, from fullness, from the overflow of a life that is yours, that you are responsible for, that you are living fully. Insight 29, the transformation of relationships. And when you love yourself, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you change. And when you change, your relationships change. From taught that you cannot have mature love without self-love. Cannot meet another as equal if you do not see yourself as equal. Cannot give freely if you are giving from depletion. Cannot receive fully if you do not believe you are worthy. When you love yourself, you stop seeking completion in others. Stop needing them to fill you. Stop demanding they be what you cannot be for yourself. And you can finally meet them as they are, not as you need them to be, not as projections of your unlived life, but as separate beings with their own paths, their own struggles, their own humanity. And you can love them, not because they complete you, but because they are them. And you are you. And two whole people are choosing to share their lives, to grow together, to support each other, not from need, but from love. And your relationships become real, become honest, become deep, because you are no longer performing, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be someone you are not. You show up as yourself, fully, completely, with all your needs and desires and complexity and humanness. And yes, some people will not be able to handle this, will prefer the mask, will leave. And this is okay, because the people who stay, the people who can meet you in your wholeness, these are your people. These are the relationships that matter, that are real, that are based on truth rather than performance, on love rather than need. And you discover something beautiful, that when you love yourself, you attract different people, people who also love themselves, people who are whole, people who can truly love. And together, you create relationships that are not about filling voids, are about sharing fullness, are about two people who have learned the art of loving themselves and therefore can practice the art of loving each other. This is mature love. This is real love. This is the love that Fromm spoke of. And it begins with you, with your willingness to love yourself. Insight 30, coming home to yourself. And so we arrive at the end, which is also the beginning. The journey of self-love is not a destination, is a practice, a daily choice, a commitment to care for yourself, to respect yourself, to know yourself, to be responsible for yourself, to love yourself, not perfectly, not without struggle, but consistently, persistently, with the understanding that you are worthy, have always been worthy, will always be worthy. Fromm taught that the art of loving must be learned, must be practiced, must be cultivated over a lifetime. And the first canvas is yourself. The first relationship is with yourself. The first love is self-love, not as preparation for loving others, but as the foundation, as the source, as the wellspring from which all other love flows. And when you love yourself, you are not being selfish, are being human, are claiming your birthright, are coming home to yourself. This homecoming is not dramatic, is not a single moment of enlightenment, is 1,000 small moments, 1,000 small choices. The choice to rest when you are tired, the choice to speak your truth when it would be easier to stay silent, the choice to set a boundary when you want to please, the choice to honor your needs when you have been taught to ignore them, the choice to be yourself when you have been taught to perform. Each choice is a homecoming. Each choice is an act of love. Each choice is you saying, I matter. I am worthy. I am here. And in these small choices, you build a life that is yours, a life that reflects who you actually are rather than who you think you should be. A life that is based on self-love rather than self-rejection, on acceptance rather than striving, on being rather than performing. This is the life that Fromm spoke of, the life of the productive character, the life of someone who has learned to love, who has developed their human capacities, who is fully alive, fully present, fully themselves. And this life is available to you. Not someday, not when you have healed enough, not when you have earned it, but now, right now, in this moment, you can choose to love yourself, can choose to come home to yourself, can choose to be yourself, fully, completely, without apology, without shame, without the constant performance. Just you, just here, just alive, and that is enough. You are enough, have always been enough, will always be enough. This is the art of loving. This is the practice of self-love. This is the journey home. And it begins now with you, with your willingness to see yourself, to care for yourself, to respect yourself, to know yourself, to be responsible for yourself, to love yourself, not as selfishness, not as narcissism, but as the most fundamental act of being human, as the foundation of everything else, as the only way to truly love, to truly give, to truly be. Welcome home to yourself. You have been waiting, and now you are here, and the work begins, and the love begins, and the life begins. Now, the journey is complete. You've traveled far tonight, through shadows, through light, through depths most never see. Your mind has done its work. You can rest now. This is the still point, your anchor in the sea of thought, a place you can always return to whenever the world becomes too loud. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting this space, for trusting yourself. Sleep well. Good night.